Hey guys, Cody here with Cortec PC, and what we're going to talk about right now is the common misconceptions about PC gaming as opposed to console gaming. Now, the major differences that people are going to argue about is that PCs are extremely ridiculously expensive and game consoles, yeah, you have to pay a little bit for them when they're brand new, but they're going to be great for years and years and years. Now, I'm not here to start a console war. I've owned every major game console since the 90s. I still own a N64, PS1, PS2, PS3, 360. I have multiples of all of these, so I can say pretty much anything that comes to mind because I have informed myself, and you can argue or you can agree. It's your opinion. Everyone's entitled to one. So I'm going to list like five, six maybe misconceptions and just kind of run with it. I'm doing all this in one shot, so yeah. Anyway, common misconception number one: processor. You have to have Intel to do anything good. That is my favorite. Not true. You don't need an i7 at all. You don't need any of the i7s. You don't even need to go high-end i5 to get really good performance out of a video game. Now, the belief is that you have to have this really expensive processor to get a lot of speed out of your processor, out of said processor rather, to achieve like ridiculous frame rates on Battlefield or Skyrim or anything like that. And you know, it used to matter as much back when they were single cores and dual cores, but seriously, we are still in an age where almost no video game that you're going to find that is not like ridiculously expensive or still in the beta phase that uses more than 4 cores. Battlefield 3 is probably the only one I can think of that remotely would come close to using that many cores, and I think its cap is 6, and I don't see a performance difference between using a friend of mine's 4-core computer and my 8-core computer. I'm running an AMD build, and people will make fun of me for it, but I saved a bunch of money as opposed to buying an i7. I get just the same effects, and to be honest with you, people think that frame rates matter, and that is the second point I guess I'll cover. Frame rates do not matter when you use, well, it does, but anything beyond the refresh rate of your monitor and or monitors does not matter. If you get 300 frames a second and you only have like a 60 hertz monitor, 60 megahertz or 60 hertz, which means you have a 60 refresh rate as opposed to that 300 frames. You are not going to notice those 300 frames because you can't. In fact, you'll get flickering and stuff like that probably because your VSync is not turned on, and too much frames are actually worse in some cases than not enough frames because you'll get the same effect, only it can be worse. Now, that used to be very common, but nowadays that doesn't really happen because most graphics cards have what's called adaptive VSync. So even if you turn VSync off after a certain point, the thing should kick in and avoid that whole problem and avoid tearing and stuff, which I've never seen tearing happen on any video game I've ever played on PC, which I guess I'm lucky. But anyway, yes, the initial point was processing power does not matter as much as your gaming performance, as far as gaming performance. I'll tell you right now the specs of the PS4. It's like at a 1.5, I want to say, 8-core processor, 1.5 or so gigahertz. You'll have to research that one because I haven't wrote down all these stats because I'm not going to buy these game consoles because I'm a PC gamer, and if I miss out on a exclusive title, boo for me, but I can run emulation so I can play the older gen game titles and I can still enjoy some of the story and everything. And yeah, I mean, eventually some of these things might become PC too. Anyway, um, as I said, the misconception about processing power is that you have to have too much to do too little, and yeah. If you look up any real benchmarking sites and stuff like the credible ones like Tom's Hardware and stuff, you'll notice that yeah, the i7s get better frame rates than the 35 or the 8350 or whatever that I run, and yeah, it's awesome to do that, but guess what? You just spent like $300 to get like maybe 10 frames more of my $200 processor. And, like, it's diminishing returns. Why would you want to spend $100 more to get 10 extra frames? Are you that anal that you want to have the ability to see your skin cells from like 10 miles away? That's kind of ridiculous. It's overkill. It's not worth it. An i5 is plenty, like a 2570 or whatever that number is. As long as it's a K overclockable processor, is fine. I personally run AMD because it's cheaper and I could save some money to increase my hard drive capacity, buy a solid state drive, and get a better graphics card and have an OS after all is said and done. Now, the second real misconception after the whole frame rates matter one is to complete the frame rate matter one is your minimum and average frame rates are what matters above everything else. Your maximum, yeah, you can get like 1,000 frames a second at one point, then get like 10 at another point, and the game becomes unplayable after like 30 or below. So I'd rather have a steady 50, 60 frames as opposed to that 1,000 spike at like the loading screen, which is okay. So I get 1,000 on a still picture. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of difference, doesn't it? I mean, if I jump into a fight scene or something and I get like in Hawken, I actually went triple screen with a single graphics card, and that game doesn't like triple screen. I'll tell you that right now. I went from like 100 frames a second down to like 12. Actually, it went lower than 12. It went down to like 5.5 maybe. It gave me some weird number on Fraps, and I was kind of ready to start crying because I built a $2,000 computer and it still can't break 10 frames a second on one game. Metro will make your computer cry. So, yeah, that kind of takes care of that one. I'd rather have higher averages and good lows over the highs. So, point three, your graphics card. You get what you pay for. The more you spend on your graphics card, the better your performance is going to be. Now, if you can afford a Titan, that is bully for you because I'm not paying $1,000 for any damn thing, okay? Outside of a car or something I'm going to get like decades of use out of if I'm lucky, $1,000 is a lot of money, and within 2 years I'll be able to get it for like 200. Mark my words, that graphics card is not going to hold its value as long as it could because $1,000 breaks the bank unless you are sponsored or something like that, which I'm not. I got at least one or two friends on for real and on YouTube that have sponsoring. And that's cool for them. And, maybe someday I'll get sponsored, but, you don't make enough money for it to really matter. So, yeah, buy what you can afford and keep in mind whatever you buy is going to be the extreme limiter. Now, your processor doesn't do as much as the graphics card, obviously, because processors don't do the blunt or the front of the force or whatever they call that phrase. They don't take the entire blow as the graphics card does because the graphics card has to do all that rendering, the world you're looking at, those pretty pictures. The graphics card has to do all of that work pretty much by itself. The RAM, which goes into the fourth point, your RAM doesn't need to be 16 or 32 gigabytes. It's better to have faster RAM than more RAM. Anything after 8 gigs of RAM on a gaming computer is overkill. Now, if you're running Photoshop and everything else on your computer, then yeah, the more RAM the merrier, but most people don't need that much RAM. They tend to be able to remember what their limits are, and they like to save often, and then they will do like I do. I'll save a layer, and then I'll take the image, and then I'll edit the image again on another file. That way I don't burn up my resources. Okay. So we're breezing through this one actually, so that's good. Okay. My favorite misconception. I believe it's misconception number 4 or 5. I'm thinking 5. Gaming PCs cost thousands and thousands of dollars. No. You can build a gaming PC for under $500 that will blow a PS3 out of the water. You just have to do your homework and all that other kind of good stuff. Now, there's no PS3 on the planet that's ever going to be able to top a computer when it comes to processing power, just because of the simple fact that the technology is over 5 years old at this point. So, how much do you need to spend on a gaming computer? Which, that question is answered by you. What kind of performance do you want to get? Do you want a $500 computer? Do you want a $1,000 computer? Are you loaded and want a $10,000 computer? Now, the number one thing I'll tell you, avoid Alienware. It is the biggest ripoff you are ever going to find because you buy parts that they put fancy stickers on, and they foobar you is what they do. They shaft you in so many ways there because you're buying something that it looks cool, but in reality you can go buy it off of Amazon or eBay for like one fifth or so of the price. I'm not paying $1,000 for a graphics card that's not worth $1,000. I'm not buying a $500 case unless it's made out of solid gold or something. I'm not buying a processor that's going to be outdated in 3 years and it's going to be worth like bargain bin after like 5 or 6. No, I'm going to be able to upgrade. I'm not going to get this tech support crap that I have to wait like 2 months to get a reply out of. I'm not going to buy one of their laptops, which I hate laptops. That's going to be the parting one that I'll give you. But I hate laptops. But no, Alienware will rip you off and all day long, and they can do that because you guys that don't know think that they're the only ones on the block. No. People that are the only ones on the block are AMD and Nvidia when it comes to their graphics cards. They can charge what they want, but they realize that people will go to whoever's selling the good stuff for the cheapest, and AMD tends to be the cheaper, but Nvidia, it's a constant war. Sometimes Nvidia is better, sometimes AMD is better. But yeah, you don't have to spend $10,000 on a gaming PC. That is ridiculous. Save your money, buy a car. Put a down payment on a house. Do something else with that $10,000. You don't need to spend that much because in like 3 years your computer's going to be worth less than 2, and then it just gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And you're going to sit there like an idiot going, why in the world did I spend this? I'm a compulsive moron. So save yourself the trouble. So yeah, those are my things. You don't have to have a really high-end processor. You don't need to have Alienware or any really expensive computer. Get the best graphics card you can. Save money off of the processor if you can to get the best graphics card you can afford because that's going to matter. Now, a side point, power supply. Get the best power supply you can find. Preferably as close to 80 plus certified platinum as you can because that is the most energy efficient and will save you the most money on your electric bill. Now, as I said, price matters, but you're getting what you pay for, but you don't have to spend all that money on a processor. You don't need to go buy one that's pre-built, which is ridiculous. You don't have to buy all this other stuff. Game consoles are cool, but after about 5 years, whatever games have come out since then are not going to look anywhere remotely as good as they do on PC because game console technology is stuck where it's at. So with that said, this is Cody with Cortec PC signing off. You guys have a good night. I'm going to sleep.